End of album. That's how it's going to end. That's kind of what I'm imagining anyway.
It's a Pixies podcast, an unvarnished, unfiltered document of the true creative process. Episode 12. On December 22nd, 2018, the Pixies finished recording their seventh album, Beneath the Eyrie, at Dreamland Studios near Woodstock, New York. Although the 3-week session was the core creative activity involved in making Beneath the Eyrie, there were plenty more stages of work to come before the album's release on September 13th, 2019. Even as he packed up his belongings that Saturday night before Christmas, producer Tom Dalgety was anticipating the first of these.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to mixing it, actually. I'm often not in this kind of frame of mind when I'm just about to start mixing a record, but no, it's, yeah. If I wasn't in a cabin in Woodstock with my girlfriend and it wasn't Christmas Day, I'd start mixing them now.
Mixing is the all-important process by which individual tracks from a recording session are blended together to create a perfect whole. This is partially a matter of adjusting individual volumes and tones and adding necessary effects like reverb or compression and much more besides. And in some cases, a mixing engineer may be charged with rearranging songs, even adding new instruments or vocals. Pixies, a self-contained creative entity, entrusted Tom Dalgety with both roles, and this enabled him to get a head start on mixing Beneath the Eyrie while still recording it.
You stole it when you stole my yesterday.
It sounds naturally very good, you know. And I work in a certain way where I don't leave like tons of decisions to the mix. I try and kind of funnel myself down and kind of like cut off certain options. So I'm not making a shitload of crucial decisions when I start mixing. It's all kind of, I've filtered it down.
As an example, listen again to Death Horizon as Paz is adding her final backing vocals on December 20th, and then to the finished master recording. The difference in sonic clarity is enormous, but the overall feel and texture was already in place.
During January and February of 2019, Tom mixed Beneath the Eyrie at his home studio in Wiltshire, England. As he did, he also worked on the sequencing of the album.
I had quite a set idea of a running order. When I'm mixing, I'm always kind of like making little playlists and stuff and experimenting with running orders, just because I'm such a fan of albums that I'm always thinking of like, oh yeah, this is the beginning of side 2, and this is the end track on the album, and that kind of thing.
In the Arms of Mrs. Mark of Cain was always Tom's preferred opening track, in part because he saw it as different from other Pixies songs.
Mark of Cain is probably a bit of an exception to the kind of classic Pixies format of, you know, loud, quiet, loud kind of thing, because Mark of Cain is just loud from the word go.
I'm not proud.
For Charles, volume, at least his own, is no longer a primary concern.
I remember years ago always wanting to hear my guitar up louder, and you realize that you don't need to, simply for the reason that you become deaf to those tones somewhat, and so it always seems like it's not loud enough, but it probably is.
Charles and Joey are about as different stylistically as you can get, really. So that actually is quite a nice thing to fuck around with.
Don't mind the rain, but now it won't stop. You think that I'm vain, but I'm calling your bluff. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready for love.
Charles can just bash through chords, and he does this great thing that not many people can do, where he sort of plays things that are just scrappy enough to be, engaging and believable, but they're pretty confidently played and strong as well. There's only a certain amount of space left for Joey after Charles has done that. So your hands are tied in a way, but it's kind of a good restriction to have, rather than, a lot of rock bands, the two guitar players are playing the exact same thing almost. Charles and Joey's stuff sort of dovetails together quite nicely, I guess, so you can get this very full kind of overall sound from them.
Once I heard the finished album, and noting how certain first-person themes came up from different sides of the emotional spectrum, I asked Charles, by phone, about the record's lyrical content. Is there anything of you in those songs, or any of these songs, or is it all about, hey man, I'm telling stories, don't mistake the first person for Charles Thompson?
Well, both. Don't mistake the story as being an autobiographical one. Having said that, if you're open to a more psychological reading of your lyrics, or if you're open to psychological transparency, I would argue probably that every single song on this record is autobiographical in that sense.
Hold that train, I told that skinny man, this is my place. This is my fate.
I don't want to call songwriting lyric poetry, but you're dealing with a kind of a poetic thing. It feels more true if you've got that kind of a poet's cap on. And a lot of times I don't know what the songs are about until after they're already done, you know what I mean? And I might not even know until a couple of years later. It's a nice thing if you happen to come up with a lyric that the listener also can insert his or herself into it and go, oh yeah, this song speaks to me. This is a song about me, I'm seeing my own life in this song.
This is my fate.
There's a duality to it. It's about me, no, it's about you, and that's a nice thing to achieve if you can do it.
Hold that train, I told that skinny man, this is my fate. This is my fate. My fate. My fate.
Throughout the mixing period, Tom sent rough mixes, primarily to Charles and Joey, for comments. As it turned out, there weren't very many.
We literally made a few tweaks, and we kind of left it to him. I just kept wanting to hear Paz's vocals louder. That was the main thing that I was trying to get right, or get right for me anyway,
Have you seen my Desiree? She rides the sea of silver gray. You'll find her at the end of summer's day. Just say it.
a big part of the vocals, because we have, you know, me sort of in the lead vocal role more or less most of the time, and then you have this other person, the female voice, singing on a lot of stuff, occasionally taking the lead vocal. That's sort of our model or whatever. And the vocal has to be loud enough so that the character of the voice and the personality of the person singing it starts to pop through.
On a beach near Mexico, los surfers muertos breathe.
Originally intended as an instrumental, Los Surfers Muertos was ultimately paired alongside Paz Lenchantin's other co-lead vocal and surf-related song, Long Rider. Arguably the moodiest of the music on Beneath the Eyrie, it was also perhaps the album's biggest surprise, as indicated by post-mix reactions from drummer David Lovering, as well as from Paz herself.
The Los Surfers Muertos. That was something that originally I thought was just going to be an instrumental, and then with the vocals on it and everything, it's very different, and there's not a lot of drums on it either. Wow, this sounds great, no drums. It's very enjoyable to listen to. I would put that on repeat.
It has a surfy vibe to it for sure. One of the things that I love about the Pixies, too, is that a song could be almost an instrumental with a couple of lyrics here and there as far as structural.
Tom Dalgety not only mixed and sequenced Beneath the Eyrie, but he also came up with the album's title, breaking with the Pixies' long-standing tradition of pulling their album titles from song lyrics.
First of all, eerie is just a cool-sounding word, and I was thinking of that from when Dave spotted the eagle's nest in the woods by the studio. And also, I felt pretty strongly that it was important that it had a title that reflected that session and encapsulated that moment in time. So I just sort of suggested it, and I didn't want to be like, hey, guys, this is the title. But I sort of just like texted it around a bit. I was like, hey, Beneath the Eyrie. That sounds like a rock record, doesn't it? You know, and sort of, you know, and there was a few other suggestions, you know, and I sort of had a bit of a sort of text back and forth with Charles about some of them.
I didn't bond with that title initially, but over time, I liked it. There's something primal, there's something dark, there's something animalistic about the idea that you as a human being is below something else that is not human. There's a kind of a little bit of a gothic tone that of the lyric and of some of the music that we were trying to achieve it without trying.
Like I was saying about the album title, you know, with wanting an album title that kind of binds it all together, it really does sound like it is bound together. It is like a sort of piece of work that just hangs together very, very nicely, even though there's some quite kind of diverse, you know, like Saint Nazaire, for instance. You wouldn't think that would kind of sit alongside Daniel Boone or Bird of Prey particularly well, but it feels, to me at least, it feels like it really does. It's kind of like a sort of first wave punk kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of the Stranglers or something like that, you know.
Two months after first hearing the finished album, and with plenty of time for it to have settled into their systems, the band's reaction remained one of unanimous delight.
I'm quite astonished. I mean, you know, in the element, it's kind of weird. It's trying to digest everything and get it all together and everything. But after the fact, you know, when I hear it as a whole and the way it's done, especially with Tom's mix and things and what everyone's done, I'm very, very pleased with it. I'm very, very, very excited about it.
I'm just thrilled with it, and everyone showed up, you know, and Tom Dalgety is like exquisite work, and you can't lie when it comes to music. You can hear it.
It is good, man. You know, I have to say that. And it's weird when I do say that to like the kids and they go, Dad, that's because it's your record. I go, nah, it's a record. You know, it's just a record that I'm hearing.
For Joey, making Beneath the Eyrie was never going to be just a record. It's the first album he's recorded since going into recovery, and he'd been extraordinarily honest about the difficulties he felt he was facing. But after this many years recording with Pixies, he was able to hear the finished record as an independent body of work, just as he was able to recognise his individual contributions.
You know, everyone has this kind of vision for what they're going to do. I try to put the Western vibe wherever I can. I think a good example of that would be Silver Bullet.
A few dark words you said to me. I drew a blank and then I flew. I walked the plank into the blue. My heart beating leagues of silence.
I mean, I'm really proud of Daniel Boone. It was like almost like an outer body experience where I was just playing and I was really into it. Something was telling me that this is good. This is really good. Yeah, but I was like in the third person. I was hearing it like, wow, this is pretty good. Fuck it. I'll just keep going, you know?
Last night I was driving around, nothing to do, thinking of you.
It's really heartfelt. I mean, everything about that was really it was magical.
And I floated toward the moon, and I noted from on high that the Lord Howe looks like Daniel Boone, and he was showing me his smile.
Pixies self-financed the recording sessions for Beneath the Eyrie, selling the finished masters to BMG for worldwide marketing and distribution. Eliminating the record company from the recording process affords Pixies complete control over the creative process. But that, in turn, demands a certain amount of self-examination. Even as the recording sessions wound up last December, both producer Tom Dalgarty and songwriter Charles Thompson sat down to consider what they, and the audience, would be wanting or expecting from the finished album.
No one, you know, myself included, no one wants to hear them try and retread things that they've done before. But also, no one wants to hear them try and be something unrecognisable. I want these songs to come on the radio and people to go, that's the Pixies.
You don't want to like say, no, we must never be experimental, or we must never do something that's so different that we probably wouldn't even be able to replicate it live, or we would have to kind of like really reinvent ourselves to be that or whatever. You know, so it's more like keeping the records so that if we go perform the records or songs from the record that we've just made, that it's representative. It's like, oh yeah, that one. It's so that the live part of it can be a decent facsimile of the reference.
In March 2019, Pixies got to play some of Beneath the Eyrie on stage for the first time when they toured American arenas with Weezer. I saw the show in Albany, New York, where, after blazing through 22 numbers in about an hour, the group privately let on that this was a dry tour, i.e. they were consuming no alcohol. Talking by phone a couple of months later, Charles discussed the benefits of this approach.
I think we sort of like that. We play better, obviously. I sing way better, not so much from drinking before the show because I don't do that. But I notice if I don't drink the night before a show, that the next show I will sing 30% better or whatever. So that's not why I wasn't drinking, but, the end result was I did sing better and I had a lot more clarity. So I am continuing to live as a sober person at the moment.
This sobriety might seem at odds with the Charles Thompson who clearly enjoyed a social drink at the end of workdays in the studio. In this phone conversation a few months down the line from those album sessions, he elaborated on the lifestyle changes.
Yeah, I just have some stuff going on in my personal life that I suppose inspired me to stop drinking and to stop smoking pot. I didn't even really think about it. I just woke up one day and it was like, oh yeah, I'm not interested in that right now. And so I just stopped and I just haven't had any desire since. And I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm going to try to surf this wave as long as I can because it's a good thing.
I remarked to Charles that I hadn't seen an apparent problem at Dreamland. He'd always seemed perfectly happy with his wine, even on that one hungover day where he nonetheless ploughed through several vocal and guitar tracks with no shortage of laughter, and then wrote Dream Horizon at the end of it. Charles acknowledged as much, and it speaks perhaps volumes to his love of Pixies.
I'm certainly in a pretty happy place if I'm hanging out with my band and recording a record or whatever. That's pretty much my favorite thing to do. So I think I don't know if I was self-medicating at that point or not, but that might have been a situational thing, where I was doing something that I enjoy exceedingly. So I was able to be more of my bon vivant self as opposed to my depressed self.
Take a little more drink. It's all right. Take a little more drink.
For a band as prolific as the Pixies, the identity of an album is defined not just by the songs they include, but also by the songs they decide to leave out. During the Dreamland sessions, the Pixies recorded a number of new songs and covers, which did not make the final version of Beneath the Eyrie. In years past, these songs would have been used as B-sides for a single release. On day 17, Charles and Tom discussed the days of the B-side.
I sort of miss those days where they were like, okay, so this song is probably going to be the single or whatever, and we're going to need, and sometimes it wouldn't be at the session where we're making the record, but like in the middle of the tour or whatever, like, we need 4 songs. And we're like, we'll do the acoustic version, surf cover, whatever. Kind of. So, but that was like, those kinds of requests were regular. You know what I mean? That were just like in a calendar year.
Just get in and record.
A couple times you had to just do something maybe wasn't going to be your best song you ever wrote. Great opportunity to do. He's just like, well, fuck it, we need it, and there's nothing we can do. You know what I mean? Just like, and I liked all that.
As a nod to the days of the B-side and a way of giving fans a little something extra, the Pixies will be releasing a special edition of the album, which includes their original demos from the spring of 2018.
We did a fresh mix on 9 demos, and they're all coming out in a special edition release of the record, which has 2 vinyl discs, and the bonus disc having those 9 songs from the original demos.
Hey there, Marie. Just what do you see? That jerk Henri. Hello, Italy.
This special edition will include the demos for 2 songs recorded at Dreamland, but left off of Beneath the Eyrie, Chapel Hill and Caught in a Dream.
Just out of reach, caught in a
other 7 songs will be new to even the most observant of Pixies fans.
I think they all sound really great, actually, and they're not perfect in their execution, but there's a lot of naivete or something about them that rings true or whatever to the band. I like it. They sound like old Pixies songs.
I got a message from Julie. I got my head in the clouds. I asked her if she would school me. She said, you better start to look at the ground. How I learned to earn rewards. How I learned to please the Lord.
The concept of B-sides may have disappeared in recent years, but not that of the album, as my experience at Dreamland those 3 weeks in December 2018 confirmed. At the end of the day, there's a reason that artists still make what once were, and to some people always will be, referred to as long players.
It's like the format of the LP has not altered yet, actually. I mean, yes, the sort of the dissemination, whatever, the distribution has changed, with streaming and all this kind of thing, but the emotional attachment to a body of work known as the LP, like that, even for people that didn't necessarily grow up with that, people that are younger than us, right? It's like the notion, the resonance of that idea of like, oh yeah, the artiste has made a new body of work called Blonde on Blonde, right? Okay. The romantic sort of embrace of that notion has carried over, you know what I mean? So people even that are younger, they still kind of like, they know that that's like what you do. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's what you go, you do your thing, that's 45 minutes long,
Over the course of this unique 12-week series, we've had a first-hand listening experience, joining the Pixies in the studio as they created their latest masterwork. Now, the album is finished, and listeners can look forward to experiencing Beneath the Eyrie in its entirety. Following the album's release on September 13th, the Pixies will set off on a world tour that will likely take them into 2021, beginning with a special guest appearance with The Cure in front of 25,000 people in Pasadena, California. Predominantly playing to the 2,000 to 5,000 capacity theaters that they find the most enjoyable, the tour to accompany Beneath the Eyrie will be taking in new territories, like China and Hong Kong, as well as extensive schedules in Europe, North and South America, Australasia, and Southeast Asia. Even for a group whose core members have been playing together for decades and are all well into middle age, going on the road with the Pixies provides everyone with profound cause for excitement.
Whatever it is, whether I'm playing at a club or whether I'm playing at a stadium, whatever, I'm really glad to be there. I'm really glad to be playing with these people that I've been playing with for so many years. And it's, pretty much the highlight of my day, at least when I'm on tour. That hour or 2 hours that I'm on stage. I mean, there's nothing better. I love it.
This was a Pixies Podcast.